California edition coming to you from Sacramento. I'm Brad Pomerance. We are joined by Armenian Nazarian. He is a member of the California State Assembly. And so I want to speak with you about some of the horrors of the 20th century. Many of us know about the horrors of the Jewish Holocaust during the 1940s. What we may not know is that Hitler had an inspiration for the Jewish Holocaust, and that was the Armenian Holocaust. He went on record saying, "Who remembers the Armenians?" For those of us that don't know about the Armenian Holocaust, tell us a bit about it.
Thank you for bringing up this important issue. I thought it was very key for us to learn from our past so that we can know what we're dealing with in the future as well, because we've seen things happen even in amidst our lives right now, given the technology we have, and yet we haven't been able to stand before it and be able to take a clear stand and stop it. The Armenian genocide has been overwhelmingly well documented, especially by Americans in the United States.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because we know there are some Holocaust deniers, Jewish Holocaust deniers, but uniformly scholars reject any suggestion that the Holocaust did not occur during the 1940s. But there is a school of thought that continues to deny the Armenian Holocaust, and that school does get some credence. Turkey, which is where the Holocaust occurred, the Armenian Holocaust, query whether they're even willing to suggest that it was a reality.
Well, I think it's a matter of time, and I'm happy to discuss that later. But unfortunately, it's politics.
Right.
You know, with acknowledgement comes reparations, comes paying back for property and damage. How do you estimate paying for 1.5 million lives? How do you estimate paying for the generations lost thereafter? How do you pay for all the properties that were seized and taken and now are under a different country?
And this occurred during World War I, is that accurate?
Yes. And
it,
World War I gets the blame as it was part of a greater war.
Right.
While it was a very systematic, intentional drive to force Armenians out of their homeland and annihilate a whole race.
At this stage, we know that in public schools in California, there is a directive that the Jewish Holocaust be taught. Your hope is that, taking nothing away from the Jewish Holocaust,
absolutely,
that the other genocides of the 20th and 21st century are also part of the curriculum. Why don't you talk about the Armenian genocide, but that's not the only one. You'd like to have it included in educational materials.
Thank you. No, it's very important. Again, going back to the point where, looking forward, we need to know what we've dealt with
right.
in the past and be educated based on what's happened. It's key for us to learn about the Armenian genocide, about what happened in Darfur, in Rwanda, in Cambodia. The last 3 of these incidents, tragic incidents, have been happening at a time where we have capability to transmit information.
I mean, in South Sudan right now, we're looking
yes.
at the news. There
yes.
is palpable evidence that there is a genocide going on still in the Darfur area.
Yes.
And yet we have iPhones, we have ways to document and send these images around the world, but we believe it's still happening.
It is, and that's why it was important for us to start at not a very young age, but a younger age, in middle school or high school, and start as a part of oral history. Let students know what happened, how it happened, how we as human beings allowed for things like this to be able to develop and take place and shape.
Right. When we come back, I want to continue this conversation because it is so very important. We're speaking with Armenian Nazarian. He is a member of the California State Assembly. For our viewers on HLN, thanks so much for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back. So, sir, you bring up the question of when do you educate about these horrors? It is a very dicey area. I mentioned to you that my daughter was given a book about the Holocaust in 4th grade. It made me a bit nervous because she had no context about the Holocaust. We are Jewish, and so the book was about a 9-year-old Jewish girl, and so we were a little concerned how she would internalize it. You're looking to have that education be more towards the middle school age, which I understand is probably appropriate, psychologically, developmentally.
Sure. Well, first of all, the reality is that anytime someone can turn on the TV and see what's going on anywhere in the world, right now in Ukraine, what's going on, has been going on for the last 2 months.
Yes.
And inquiring minds, inquiring students and children, the youth will ask questions and will want to find out more. Well, it's important for us to create a context in which there could be a curriculum of understanding exactly what information to discuss, to bring up, and to talk about how things occurred, so that students aren't just talking about mass killings, but they understand how, unfortunately, sometimes individuals can come into power for things like this to happen.
What's interesting about the Jewish Holocaust is there are survivors still living.
Yes.
They're in their 80s, but they are living, and they are going to schools, and they are talking. There are no survivors left of the Armenian Genocide. Just chronologically, it's impossible.
Very few.
Are there? Well, maybe
very few.
There are those over 100?
Very frail few.
Okay,
yes.
well, amen to that. But be that as it may, are there, for example, with the Jewish Holocaust, there's the Shoah Foundation, which
yes.
for 20 years has been recording these oral testimonies. Was that done? Is that being done for the Armenian Genocide?
It's a great question. In fact, very recently, before Dr. Michael Hagopian, a dear friend of mine, passed away, he was a survivor.
He was, right.
2 months of age when he went.
So no memories,
genocide.
but a survivor.
Yes,
correct.
lost family members. He had dedicated his life to putting together the Armenian Film Foundation.
Fantastic.
Which documented and archived some, I believe, almost 500 different interviews.
Fantastic.
And before leaving us, he ensured that they are preserved well and made it part of the Shoah Foundation.
Oh, the
And
Jewish
so,
Shoah. Oh,
yes,
wow. Oh, how wonderful.
What better home for
Right.
these two to coexist together and be an educational program?
So will these be available, presuming AB 659 passes, for use in schools? Because, I don't know, it seems to me that may be one of the best ways to educate, is to have survivors discuss.
Absolutely. That was the key point. And as you pointed out, unfortunately, many of the survivors are not with us anymore from the Armenian Genocide.
If I may ask, and I don't mean to get too personal, in your family, I know you're of Armenian descent, did you know survivors growing up?
No, none of, well, part of my family was from Russia. The other part was actually driven out from the region of Nagorno-Karabakh and later established in a different part of the world because of being driven out. And that they were driven out actually in the 1920s.
Later?
Oh yeah.
Later.
So certain efforts were still being carried out even after World War I came to a conclusion.
Wow.
Because there was still some unfinished business.
Now let me ask you, it's surprising to some that there could be controversy surrounding this bill because, as we know, Turkey is an ally of the United States, as is Armenia, but Turkey continues to be nervous about acknowledging the Armenian Holocaust, and so are you able to get this bill through the legislature?
This is going back to the previous question that I wanted to answer. So Turkey is, it's very difficult to figure out what price to put on the cost of human life, of property. And so they've been denying this. And they've been saying that this was something that was done by the Ottoman Empire in its waning days, and so it's done. The reality is that we really, anytime you want to move forward, you need to look at where you are, who you are, and be able to look at yourself in the mirror. That's why I say I think it's a matter of time until these certain...
But is it a matter of time before this bill passes, or do you think you can generate the support?
Coming to this bill, I was very proud to see that my colleagues in the Education Committee of the Assembly passed this bill unanimously in a bipartisan manner. Absolutely. In fact...
Going to the Senate?
In fact, well, it's still going to go to appropriations, the floor, and then on to the Senate.
Okay, well, we wish you the best of luck for sure.
Thank you.
His name is Armenian Nazarian. He is a member of the California State Assembly. My name is Brad Pomerance. This is California Edition.
In what year did the first Armenian move to California? 1874, 1889, 1904, or 1911? The first Armenian arrived in California in 1874 and settled in Fresno.